else to talk. Okay. Fred.
Good morning.
So welcome back to Senate Economic Development. We had a sprinkler malfunction and the building had to evacuate the fire trucks. It took 10 minutes, but we're back and happily the sprinklers seem to be, will hopefully be functioning again. We have Fred Kenny for a very abbreviated time. We're going to pivot from Advanced Vermont, which will hopefully come back to finish at some point, but we're going to pivot to the Regional Development Corporation's ask in the Workforce Development Bill, and maybe and what is not in the Workforce Development Bill, which is another piece of their ask. So Fred, if you would address both what's in the the Workforce Development Bill and what is your economic development ask that's in the budget. And we will have you back, but if we could go for 12 minutes now, that would be great.
All right, I'll go. We'll get as far as we can. So Fred Kenny, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation, and I'm also currently the president of the RDCs of Vermont, the Association of the 12 Regional Development Corporations. I sent you some documents. One is probably not new information for any of you, which is what are RDCs, what we do, and there's also a map of our regions. The second document documents our funding requests that I'll talk about. And the final one is a document about the Small Business Technical Assistance Exchange Program that I'll also talk about. So the first one very quickly is not in 484. It's in the big budget, which is an RDC request for increased funding for our annual performance grants. So the governor's budget request included $200,000 as part of the base Agency of Commerce budget that would go through to the RDCs as a part of our annual performance grants. So that would add about $13,000 per RDC on top, in addition to the $108,000 that we each get currently. As you know,
you only get 108.
Correct. That's been our grant for the past 12 years. It hasn't increased in 12 years. And as like everybody else, we're facing increased costs, rising wages, benefit costs, and expanded services. We've been asked to do more and more each year. So that's the reason for the request. And we really appreciated the governor including it in his budget and the House including it in the big bill that was sent over to you. So
that is the first ask, which is only $200,000. I mean, that's a modest at 13,000 per RDC. That's pretty modest. That is it represented in section 30. No, that's in section.
I believe it's in B801 of the budget, H9.
Okay, that's in the budget.
Yeah, and you don't really see it as a line item. It's included in ACCD, the Department of Economic Development's budget. Right,
but it's in our pot for us to advocate for or not with appropriations.
Absolutely, and we would definitely appreciate your advocacy for us on that.
Okay, great. And what is in the Workforce Development Bill is sections 30 and 37, which are the Rural Business Technical Assistance Exchange appropriation and for 1.25 million, right?
Yeah, and then the request for the Rural Industry Development Fund. So on section 30,
so that would be great.
A little bit of background on the Small Business Technical Assistance Exchange. This is a new funding request. Utilizing CARES Act money and then ARPA funding, the RDCs developed and stood up and administered a technical assistance program for very small and small businesses that required technical assistance to recover and pivot after COVID. It's won an award from an International Economic Development Association, very successful program. that assisted over 800 Vermont small businesses, either as clients or as technical assistance providers. So we use all Vermont companies to provide technical assistance. So to be clear, this is not, you know, the normal assistance provided by RDCs each day in our normal routine of work. It's very specific technical assistance provided by technical professionals. We use the program to match clients all around Vermont, small businesses, to vendors that offer the services they were looking for. And then we manage the scope of work process from matching them up with the vendors to writing the scope of work, that making sure that it gives the small business what they need to pivot and to, you know, try to recover. And then the funds in the program actually provide a grant paid to the vendor once they complete the work to the client's satisfaction. One outcome that we had out of it, as well as all the small businesses that were assisted, we ended up, you know, creating a very robust inventory of Vermont technical assistance providers. So we have a database that's searchable. It's online. You can look at it online right now, of technical assistance providers that we vetted, and they demonstrate the ability and expertise to assist small business with critical tools to grow and adapt their business. These include professionals like attorneys, CPAs, architects, engineers, other professional services like information technology, digital strategies, business operations, financial management, assistance to hospitality properties, marketing, photography, video production, and even grant writing. So vast array of different technical services. So we are requesting the 1.2 million to continue this program. It ended because it was the federal ARPA money that we were using for it. So originally,
and you used up all the ARPA money?
We did. We put it all out the door. A total of about 800 grants that assisted small businesses. But so this funding would help us continue that program, use that database that we still have available of vendors. And our plan is to focus the assistance to rural businesses and businesses owned by historically underserved populations. If you take a look at the document I sent you on the second page, it kind of outlines, it breaks down demographically the funding that went out, and you can see that it went to, a lot of women-owned businesses, businesses owned by seniors or mature business owners. 54 were owned by BIPOC owners. So program has a history of assisting underserved populations, and our aim would be to continue that outreach to those businesses and targeting this assistance to those businesses. This was not in the governor's budget, but it is in the House passed version budget and H-484. I also sent you a document with a couple of amendments to the language that passed the House. And I don't know if we have time to go. There's 4 amendments, and I can go through them pretty quickly. But
you to come back if you had a moment, maybe tomorrow.
Sure.
Because we have just a few more minutes, and then because of our alarm,
yep.
Obviously we need to pivot to Tom Cheney at the end, just to wrap up his remarks.
All right. Well, let me go to the Rural Industry Development Fund, and I'll come back, and you have the document with the amendments in it, and I can come back and talk about those. Nothing real controversial, just I think amendments that we think will strengthen the program. So the Rural Industry Development Fund, this was proposed by the governor in his budget. We support the administration's request for this program. The governor suggested our budget included $10 million to establish this fund. The just a little background on it. The Department of Economic Development and the RDCs together have noted about 35 instances over the past year of potentially lost opportunities for startup, domestic expansions, or non-domestic recruitment situations that, were lost or may have been lost because we just didn't have sites available for them. And we've calculated a need for about 1 million square feet of industrial space, industrial commercial, not office space, but space for commercial development for various projects. In many of our regions, and it's different in every region, but for many of the regions, there are facilities, but they are privately owned and controlled, and the owners have them overpriced, and they're sitting there unused, or the building is in need of some work to make them available on the market, or they're not suitable for the, whatever project we have in hand. And then some regions have privately owned or municipally owned parcels that could be appropriate for development, but it doesn't have any infrastructure, they're not pre-permitted, or they're brownfields that need remediation. So that's another good thing about this proposal, is it works hand in hand with the brownfield proposal. And we also support the administration's request for $10 million for that program, which unfortunately was cut to $8 million in the House passed budget. So as you know, companies need to move fast, and they can't wait 2 to 3 years that it takes to permit a property, get a building built, and get the infrastructure built and a building built. They just can't wait that long. So what this proposal will help with is to get several properties, maybe one in every region. It's a flexible fund that can be accessed by the RDCs to prepare existing buildings for sale, pre-develop or pre-permit parcels, thereby substantially shortening the time needed to have a facility or a parcel available for a startup, for a local expansion or a recruitment situation, or have the ability to build a building on spec and have facilities ready to take advantage of growth and recruitment opportunities. So we support the proposal the way it is, and it has the flexibility built into it regarding the parties that can be involved. It can be RDCs together with property owners. It allows for private-public partnerships. The allowed uses of the funds to do pre-development, pre-permitting, redevelopment of existing facilities, develop new facilities, use it for match for federal funds like NBRC. So we appreciate the flexibility that's built into the proposal. So we definitely support that request and also support bringing it back to the $10 million requested by the administration versus the House proposal of $5 million.
Thank you, Fred. I think Joan spoke to us about this.
Probably,
yeah. Our understanding was this was also for particularly for Canadian companies that needed space. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, absolutely. That's, it's for local expansion, having space for local expansion, but also for recruiting companies, some of which in the northern part of the state would be Canadian companies. Absolutely. We have a lot of them. Okay. That's somebody we're working closely with, the state is working with. So we know we have potential companies that want to locate here. But that's not the only use. It would be for, I have 2 companies looking for space in Addison County right now, and we don't have anything for them. I'm going to keep working at it, but if, this kind of thing would help, I could say to them, yep, we're ready to go. Here's your space. Yeah, instead, we have to look and see what's available, then get it permitted, then get it redeveloped probably. But that's one of the purposes for sure.
Great. So it says it's a very short section for a lot of money. It's got like 3 lines in it in the bill. It says it's created in 10 VSA section 6, which is a little puzzling because it's being created right now. So
yeah, I think
and the language is not here. So
I think there's another section with the language. That's the appropriation, okay. I believe.
Well, we'll try and find it in the approach bill. I
It's
can't
in
take the time now.
section 36 in the version I'm looking at. That's 484 as introduced, which might be,
No, we
so it
have
might be
44.
off by a section.
Right, and it's section 37 here, but it may also be 36, and I just don't.
Yeah, 37 is
Okay,
is the
it's 36
appropriation.
and 37. Thank you. Great. Any questions for Fred right now? Because I think we'll have you come back and talk about this for another 15 minutes and your amendments. So if we could save our questions for that moment, is that okay? Okay. Thank you. That was really helpful.
All right, great.
And let's be in touch. If you and Scott and I could come up with another time, that would be great. Tom
Yeah, the only
Cheney.
time I'm not available tomorrow is 1:30, so in the morning is fine.
Okay, well, we don't meet at 1:30, so we're
Right.
a morning committee, so
Yep, that works.
we will figure it out.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Fred. We
I
really,
appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
thank you. We appreciate your work. Tom Cheney, closing remarks. Sorry, a sprinkler system malfunction sent us scurrying from the building.
Okay. I'm glad you're back, and that it wasn't anything more than that. I guess I can really quickly talk to this section 10 and then wrap. And basically, I was just saying that, okay.
Yeah.
Just basically saying that, what it does is section 10 would create, workforce focused career and education resources on My Future VT. So kind of showcasing the climate workforce opportunities that are there, really in support of meeting the climate plan that we have. Was it part of a much larger proposal that was brought together by the Energy Action Network's Climate Workforce Action Team? And they bring together all sorts of folks. I'll go through this quickly, but training partners, education, career and technical education stakeholders, employers, working Vermonters, prospective employees, and energy and climate organizations. And really the thought was they wanted to figure out what strategies could they pull together to address the workforce needs in the climate focused occupations. And just what kept coming up for them was that there was a lack of understanding of the many well-paying career opportunities in the sector. So they put forward this ambitious proposal that would be a 3-year public education campaign, similar to, say, Button Up Vermont or Drive Electric Vermont, that would include a lot of outreach, workshops, webinars, trainings, other events that would reach prospective workers and navigators. In my testimony, I included this proposal. So if the committee is interested in broadening it back to a larger campaign to really try to support the climate goals that we have as a state, we would be happy, the coalition would be happy to entertain that with you. If there's not an appetite for that, I just ask for you to support section 10 as draft.
Thank you. There may be appetite, but there may be no ability. So, I mean, there may be interest, but not the finances. We have a constrained box within which to work. And so I think working with what we have is where we'll be. What do you, and that's very helpful. You're able to do something in terms of public education for $100,000.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that will be something also that climate focused companies in this area that are making money would help contribute and maybe match some of the state money, and maybe that could be a creative way to fund the rest of it. We hope. Any questions? Yeah, because Randy has a question for you.
Sure, Senator.
I think we talked about this last year.
Yeah.
In terms of your structure, and is it that you are a part of the
VSAC?
VSAC? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. VSAC is our fiscal sponsor. Yes. Yeah.
Are they your fiscal sponsor, or are you in effect a subsidiary of?
Yeah, we would. Yeah. Yes. We would technically be a subsidiary of VSAC. Yes.
Because I'm trying to look for financial statements, and there don't seem to be any.
Yeah. Yeah. They're part of VSAC's.
And you can't break them out if you look at VSAC's financial statements to see what relates to you.
Right. Okay. I'm happy to talk with you. Yeah.
What could you, given we're now 7 minutes after the hour, I need to close us up, but if you could send us your financials for advanced VT, that would be great. If you're able to send your budget to Randy, is that what you'd like?
I'd like a little bit more than that, but that's a start.
Yeah,
Basically, we talk about transparency, and what I'm not
Yep.
seeing is transparency. I can't identify what's being spent for you in any financial statements that appear on the public record. And that concerns me a lot.
okay.
Oh,
I'm happy to work with VSAC to see if we can pull together a report that would be more specific to Advance Vermont. And, we'll try to pull something together that maybe shows like revenues and expenses over the last year. Would that be helpful?
Revenues, expenses, and how they're allocated and so on, because one of the things that I'm really looking at is how do we measure the benefit from what we invest in Advance Vermont. And it starts with numbers that you can rely on.
Yeah.
But that's a good start.
Okay, yeah, happy to do that. So thanks for the question, and feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions or
Thank you.
concerns.
thank you. Thank you.
This is a bigger issue than this. It's
Yeah.
a bigger issue in much of the chain that I'm seeing here today. And that is a relationship between what's being spent and what's in fact being achieved. Now, I look at things like the Sustainable Jobs Fund as a classic example. And I see in Advance Vermont, I believe that you mentioned the Flex Capital Fund that you provide a manager for. Is that correct? Or is that a
That's not
different
us,
fund?
no. That's something different. That's not us.
That's not you. That's solely
That's VSAC.
that's. Is it
I'm not
VSAC?
sure what the Flex Capital Fund is. I don't know what that is. That's not something we do. Yeah.
Well, there's something called and what I wanted to try to get a sense, because I saw something related to what we're talking about now with Tom and that, and I'll have to go back and research it further. But there is something called the Flexible Capital Fund, which is a subsidiary of VSAC. And
It is?
it's not VSAC, I'm sorry, a subsidiary of the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund.
Okay.
It's a subsidiary of that. Now, the Flexible Capital Fund is a for-profit corporation, which again concerns me.
So I would suggest we need to end, but I would suggest you follow up with Ellen and ask
Yeah, I've
Ellen
done
about
that.
that. And
Years
I-
past.
I think I'm going to adjourn us for today because we're now 10 minutes after the hour, but we'll pick this up and continue this conversation.